Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in, especially into a classic like this.
Okay, so today we're tackling Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, this book is basically personal finance 101 for so many people.
It's one of those books you see everywhere.
Right. And, we had a bunch of you asking for a deeper dive into it, which makes sense because it's a classic for a reason, but it's also, well, it's gotten some heat over the years.
Yeah, it's definitely sparked some debate.
So we're going to unpack all of that. We'll dig into the core concepts, the good, the bad, the maybe a little outdated.
Gotta see if it holds up.
Exactly. And the whole premise of the book is so relatable, right? Kiyosaki growing up with these two father figures, his own dad and his friend's dad, totally different backgrounds, totally different mindsets about money and success. I mean, thinking back, whose approach to money felt more familiar in your world growing up? Was it more like, get a stable job, work hard, save your pennies?
The classic path.
Or was it more like, learn how money works, build assets, create your own opportunities?
Which, looking back, it's fascinating how much those early messages stick with us, even if we don't realize it.
Oh, totally. But Kiyosaki, he doesn't just tell stories, right? He straight up says that schools fail us when it comes to financial education.
Which, he has a point. How many of us actually learned how to manage money, invest, build wealth?
I mean, I learned algebra, but did that really help me understand, like, compound interest or anything? Not really. I mean, don't you think learning about money is kind of essential?
It's fundamental. And the thing is, Kiyosaki isn't just talking about basic budgeting here. He's pushing for a deeper understanding of how money works, beyond just earning and spending.
It's like he wants us to be fluent in the language of money.
Exactly. He wants us to get that financial literacy that goes beyond, just balancing a checkbook.
And that's where this whole idea of assets versus liabilities comes in, right? This is like Rich Dad, Poor Dad 101.
Definitely a core concept.
Yeah.
And it's powerful because it forces you to look at everything you own, everything you spend money on, through a different lens.
Suddenly, that shiny new car doesn't seem so appealing anymore.
He really challenges us to think about, is this thing putting money in my pocket or is it taking it out? And that's the essence of an asset versus a liability. Now, some people say he oversimplifies it, especially when he talks about a house being a liability.
Yeah, that's the part that always gets people fired up.
Right. Because for a lot of us, our home feels like our biggest asset.
Like, hello, mortgage payments.
Exactly. But I think what he's trying to highlight is the difference between an asset that generates cash flow and one that simply costs you money. He's not saying don't buy a house. He's saying understand the financial implications.
See, I always saw that as him pushing everyone to become a real estate mogul.
That's definitely a big part of his story, yeah. But even beyond real estate, the bigger picture is about understanding cash flow. It's about creating a situation where you've got money coming in consistently, even when you're not actively working for it.
Which is basically the dream, right?
Yeah.
Escape that rat race.
Right, because who wants to be stuck on that hamster wheel forever?
Working just to pay the bills, never getting ahead. It's a powerful image he paints. But I think what really resonated with me, and maybe with a lot of people, is that he doesn't just tell you to escape the rat race. He actually gives you ideas on how to do it. And that's where his emphasis on entrepreneurial thinking comes in.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue he was ahead of his time on that. Think about it. The rise of the gig economy, freelancing, online businesses. It's all about creating your own opportunities, just like Rich Dad encouraged.
It's like he saw the future of work.
In a way, he did. And it's not just about starting a business. It's about that mindset shift, being proactive, taking calculated risks, not being afraid to fail.
Because that's the other thing. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He talks about the fear, the laziness, all those inner obstacles that hold us back.
That's where the book gets a little bit into, like, personal development territory.
Totally. It's like a pep talk and a financial guide all rolled into one.
And honestly, I think that's important. Because our mindset, our beliefs about money, those can be just as powerful as any financial strategy.
It's like you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're afraid to take action, what good is it?
Exactly. Now, some people criticize the book for being, a bit too simplistic in this area. They say it's all about think positive and you'll be rich.
Which, that's not the whole story.
It's fairly not. But I think the point he's trying to make is that our mindset can either sabotage us or support us on our financial journey.
It's like our thoughts can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the core concepts, the mindset stuff,
Hmm.
but we got to address the elephant in the room.
The critiques.
Yeah, the critiques.
Yes.
Because there are some. One of the biggest ones is that Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a little light on specifics. Like, okay, assets are good, liabilities are bad, but how do I actually, build those assets?
It's more about the big picture, the philosophy.
Right. It's not like a step-by-step guide to investing or anything.
And I think that's a fair criticism. The book is meant to spark a mindset shift, not necessarily to be a detailed financial plan. It's like a starting point, a conversation starter. But to actually put those principles into practice, you need to do your homework.
Do your research, talk to a financial advisor, the whole nine yards.
Exactly. Because everyone's situation is different, everyone's goals are different,
And let's not forget, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is pretty heavily focused on real estate.
which, made sense in the context of Kiyosaki's own experience.
Right. But is that still the golden ticket to wealth that it once was?
That's the debate, isn't it?
Because the investment landscape has changed so much, even in the last few years.
Yeah, you've got stocks, bonds, crypto, all these other options that weren't really on the radar when the book was first published.
So real estate can be a part of a diversified portfolio, but it's not the only way.
Exactly. And I think that's where the importance of doing your own research comes in.
So with all that said, who should actually read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Like, is it still relevant today?
I think it is, especially for people who are new to personal finance or anyone who's feeling stuck, trapped in that rat race mentality.
Because it really does challenge the conventional wisdom about money.
And it pushes you to think for yourself, to question the status quo. But, and this is important, you have to read it with a critical eye.
It's one perspective, not the gospel truth.
Exactly. It's a starting point on your financial journey.
And it's a journey that's unique to each of us, right?
Mhm.
So as we wrap things up, here's a question to ponder. If you could add a chapter to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, based on your own life experiences, your own lessons learned about building wealth, what would it be? What advice would you give to the world? It's something to think about as you continue on your own financial journey. Keep learning, keep growing, and until next time, happy diving.